and welcome to the Movieception Show. I am Fariba, and today's the day. Today is the final episode of House of the Dragon Season 1, and let's just say that this has been quite an incredible journey since the show started back in August. I mean, let's be clear about the fact that this was a show that initially a lot of people were skeptical about because of basically what happened with Game of Thrones Season 8. And a lot of us didn't know where the show was going to go, how it was going to be, whether or not it would still at least emulate the best parts of Game of Thrones. And that's usually really hard to do for just any like spin-off show to accomplish in terms of just trying to, equate the quality of like their predecessor, the original content. But let's be honest, but the thing is, like, with House of the Dragon, it's really, not only has it essentially accomplished its ability to be as good as Game of Thrones, or at least the good parts of Game of Thrones, but it's actually far exceeded in many ways that Game of Thrones couldn't do. And a lot of that is kind of going back to not just like the storytelling, but a lot of just the performances that we've seen, just the characters that we've been introduced to. I mean, we've been watching characters like Daemon and Viserys kind of change throughout the season, and yeah, the time jumps have been a bit of clunky in ways where it does kind of sometimes ruin the pace in one way or another. But otherwise, like, this is a show that's really done such a great job in just kind of building up to essentially would be the Dance of the Dragon event. And as we saw in the last episode, the war has essentially begun. And the last episode was more focused on the Green Council, whereas here we're going to see more of a perspective from those at Dragonstone and kind of see how they're reacting to everything that's unfolded since now Viserys is dead. And as we all expected, there's going to be a lot of ramifications as a result of, his passing, even with everything that he's tried to do to kind of support Rhaenyra's claim to the throne. So, yeah, I mean, I'm super excited. I know that there was a leak, so I've really been trying my best to avoid all the spoilers for this. But yeah, I am just super excited just to see what happens in the season finale. And I mean, I have a lot of expectations for it. I mean, it's gonna be insane knowing that this is gonna be the end for just a while. I mean, I can't wait for season 2. It's probably gonna take a while to season 2, but we'll talk about more of that at the end of this episode, kind of see what everything unfolds. So yeah, without further ado, let's watch the final episode of House of the Dragon Season 1.
Sea Snake is going to die, isn't he? Luke.
He can't be all of the tides. Grandsire was the greatest sailor who ever lived. I get green sick before the ship even leaves the harbour. I'll just ruin everything.
Oh, he's just sweet.
I don't want to flock. You told us.
She taught them well.
And do you want to know the truth of it? 4 and 10, same as you are now. I wasn't ready to be Queen of the 7 Kingdoms, but it was my duty. And in time, I came to understand I had to earn my inheritance.
Not like you.
Wise
In what way,
words.
sweet boy?
Wise words.
Not so.
Princess Rhaenys,
Huge ass bombshell.
might we hope for news of Lord Corlys's recovery?
Viserys is dead.
Oh
I grieve this loss with you, Rhaenyra.
my god, she's in total shock right now.
There is more.
Oh, this is gonna hurt.
Aegon has been crowned as his successor.
They crowned him.
While the Queen made her preparations.
Viserys has been slain. Alicent demanded you declare for Aegon. And him before the masses.
So that the masses would see him as their rightful king.
That whore of a queen murdered my brother and stole his throne, and you could have known more, friend.
Oh!
War is that.
Even him too!
Country, to be sure.
Even he's saying the same shit.
But that war is not mine to begin. I only rushed this warning to you out of loyalty to my husband and to mine house. The Greens are coming for you, Rhaenyra. And for your children.
This is such a huge, like,
You
shock
should leave
to her.
Dragonstone at once.
Baby's coming.
Her term is far from complete. This should not be happening.
Keep your head about you, princess. You have. You've done this 5 times before. Keep your spirit in the 6th one.
Get off! Get off! Get off!
She's in a lot of stress. This is not good. I love how, oh man, we gotta give props to David being right on like that.
Princess,
She's in so much stress.
Your grandchild, King Viserys, has passed.
Viserys?
The Greens have repudiated the succession and claimed the Iron Throne. Aegon has been crowned king.
Oh,
what's this to be known about it?
Nothing yet.
have you seen
Where's David?
I don't know. Gone to madness. Gone to plot his war. I command.
Oh my god. This is just insane. This is insane. Everything is just going by so quick, but it makes sense.
Raven flew in this morning. The sea snake's fever is broken.
Do you want to speak to the Maester, my prince?
Don't you even freaking dare. Yeah.
I'll fly to the rivers myself and affirm Lord Tully's.
You'll need it to control the skies on Virmax.
Did you hear what I said? The Ravens will want it.
I shall see it done.
Summon.
I'm grateful for your long service to the crown. So I'm presenting you with a choice. Or
Oh my god, Cyrus.
you support the usurper speaker now.
And you will have a clean and honourable death.
Know that you will die. Screaming.
Princess, let us help you.
This is so stressful. Oh my god, this is so great. That baby better be alive.
with all my strength, and give my blood for hers. I shall take no wife, hold no lands, father no children. I shall guard her secrets, obey her command.
That's loyalty. The true queen. Rhaenyra's impressed.
Rhaenyra Targaryen, first of her name. Queen of the Andals and Rhaenyra and the First Men. Lady of the Seven Kingdoms and protector of the realm.
Amen to that.
Your Grace.
Why, my queen? Thank you, Rhaenyra. Come.
She's already a better queen.
With Prince Daemon's acquiescence, I've already sent ravens to Lord Grover.
Grover. That name sounds
Lord
good.
Grover is fickle and easily swayed. We need to be convinced of the strength of our position, and that we will support him should it come to war.
I'm going to treat with him myself.
What of Storm's End and Winterfell?
There has never lived a Stark who forgot an oath, and with House Stark, the North will follow.
Our own fleet. And our enemies.
We have no friends among the Lannisters. Tyrant served a hand too long to turn against him. And Otto Hightower needs the Lannister fleet.
Without the Lannisters, we're not likely to find any allies west of the Golden Tooth.
No. The Riverlands are essential, Your Grace.
Pray forgive my bluntness, Your Grace.
Cyrax, Caraxes, and Melees.
Your sons have Virmax, Arax, and Tyrax.
like, what?
Rhaenyra has Moondancer.
Daemon, none of our dragons have been to war.
There are also surround King's Landing with the dragons, and we could have every greenhead mounted on spikes before the fucking moon turns.
Your Grace,
I love Daemon.
a ship is sighted offshore. A long galleon flying a banner of a three-headed green dragon.
Alert watchtowers inside the skies.
He's like, I'm not gonna F around with this. We're not effing around. I love it. I love them already. Straight on, straightforward. They know they're going to war. They're being strategic.
I count at the behest of the Dowager Queen Alicent, mother of King Aegon II of his name, Lord and Protector of the Seven Kingdoms. I've been directed to deliver her message only to Princess Rhaenyra. Where is the princess?
She's not the princess. She's the queen, mofo. Huh? Remember old days? The old times? Things have changed, Otto. Things have changed. This is another scene from episode 2. Oh. But the turntables have turned, right?
Princess Rhaenyra.
She ain't Princess
I'm Queen
Mofo.
Rhaenyra now.
And you all are traitors to the realm.
King Aegon Targaryen, second of his name,
Oh, shut up.
in his wisdom and desire for peace, is offering terms.
Sure.
Acknowledge
I'd
Aegon.
rather feed my sons to the dragons than have them carry shields and cups. For your drunken usurper, come to the king.
Aegon Targaryen sits the iron fast to see the truth of it.
Oh, I want to slap him.
You are in more hand than Aegon is king. Fucking traitor.
Queen Alicent has not forgotten the love you once had for each other. No blood may be spilled. The realm can carry on in peace. Queen Alicent eagerly awaits your answer.
She can have her answer now, stuffed in her father's mouth along with his withered cock. Let's end this mama's farce. Sir Eric, bring me Lord Hightower so I may take the pleasure myself.
No.
She's not rash, she's not impulsive. Already a better ruler.
It's no easy thing for a man to
Their own histories, I know them well. When dragons flew to war, everything burned. I do not wish to rule over a kingdom of ash and bone.
Are you considering the High Tower's terms, Your Grace?
That's what
It is my true duty to the realm, Lord Bottomus. Ensuring peace.
What are you going to do about it?
That's true. They're the ones who started it.
Clear the room.
Oh, shit. She ain't gonna take any shit. I love it. Rhaenyra's already proud.
Viserys shared it with me when he named me.
Oh, dang. What the fuck?
My brother was a slave to his owners and portraits. Anything to make his feckless reign appear to have purpose.
Now that was very off-putting. WTF.
I never told you. Did he?
Oh, oh, so now he's jealous. Oh my god.
We lost Corlys. We.
It's we, not I. It's we.
Daemon took his head for it.
He's like, I'm not surprised.
Heedless ambition has always been a Valarian weakness. You are right.
Easy words for a lord who commands from the safety of his castle.
Baratheon and Stark.
Hope is the fool's ally.
Both Arryn and Baratheon.
Full support of our fleet and house.
Your Grace.
If you could just tell them the truth.
You honor me, Lord Corlys.
Will be in place in days, if not already. The Triarchy have been routed. The narrow sea is ours.
Oh,
If
that's
we
big.
further seal the gullet, we can cut off all seaborne travel and trade to King's Landing.
There you
I
go.
should take Naelys and patrol the gullet myself.
Let's do
When we
this.
get the narrow sea, we can surround King's Landing, lay siege.
And the cost of breaking them.
Hell yeah.
Yes, Mum. To Chris.
He's like having a romantic moment with this dragon. That means Aemon's here.
The House of the Dragon does not seem to know who rules it. What's your mother's message? Remind me of my father's oath. King Aegon at least came with an offer. My swords and banners for a marriage pact. If I do as your mother bids, which one of my daughters will you wed?
Wait! My Lord Strong.
Oh. Of course. He's gonna try
Did
to
you really
escape.
think that you could just fly about the realm, trying to steal my brother's throne at no cost? No. I want you to put out your eye.
Oh my jeez.
It's payment for mine. One will serve. I will not blind you. I plan to make a gift of it to my mother.
No.
Then you are craven as well as a traitor.
Oh my god, he's having this Mr. Laugh. Oh my god. Smart. That's scary as shit. Pirates. Oh my god, you murderous bitch. Oh, and he knows. Oh my god. She had literally lost her father, her stillborn son, and now her second. Say it. The final episode of House of the Dragon Season 1, and holy shit is just the best way to describe it. I mean, what a way to just set the stage of this war, right? I mean, we saw in the last episode that essentially the Greens were the ones who started this, right? Had they just, stuck with Viserys's, words about making Rhaenyra the queen, probably none of this would have happened, right? With the moment that they quickly put in Aegon as the king and didn't even inform Rhaenyra that her own father was dead, let alone the fact that Otto wanted to kill them off. I mean, the war, they started the war, of course. That's without a doubt. And here we're kind of seeing where the defenders are now trying to see what they can to defend themselves, right? I mean, Rhaenyra is on the defense. So it makes so much sense why we're seeing her being the way she is, just strategizing what they need to do to basically fight off the Greens, the Hightowers. And here's the thing, right? The moment that she learns about King Viserys' death, you can just tell how in that whole sequence right there, how her head is spinning. Like, a lot of people might complain about how that whole scenario might have gone a bit too quick, but I think it was done for a purpose. And that is that there's just so much happening that she's taking in so much heartbreak, bombshells, scandal. Like, she's taking in so much information. She's so stressed in the moment that you can tell just everything going around her. Like whenever you're in that moment, in such the most immense stress possible, you're like, time works so differently. And we saw kind of how what was going on with Rhaenyra, that see kind of how all that unfolds here, right? Just the amount of stress that she's under. I mean, first off, she just learns about the fact that her father is dead, right? Okay, it just should be for time for her to process his death, right? I mean, she just saw him like not even a day ago, right? But then the bigger problem, and the one more daring and most heartbreaking part, is the fact that Aegon has now been put in the throne over her. And it's like, and not just that, but the Hightowers have been wanting to basically kill off her family. They're now threatening her and her family. That is so much stress to deal with. And we see basically how all that stress has led to her miscarriage, basically. And just seeing the sequences leading up to it, just seeing how her world is spinning, the chaos has invoked, you really just start sympathizing with her and empathize. Like, you can just tell that this is a mother who just didn't want to go into any sort of bloodshed. She just wants to be a queen and do what her father had wanted and fulfill the promise of, Aegon's, dream, only to see that all this has unfolded on her in such a small amount of time, which led to her miscarriage, which is so heartbreaking because this is something that happens far too common for women. And just for her to have to deal with that, right? Because now, not only does she have this miscarriage, now she's dealt with her father's death, the death of her stillborn child, and then we'll about to get into the last part in a second. But even with everything that had unfolded, right? This is where you really have to appreciate how the show has really shown the strength of a woman, right? Because here's the part with House of the Dragon that we've seen in some of the previous episodes, especially the first few episodes when, Rhaenyra was crowned the queen or the heir of the Iron Throne. Many people, many lords, many, houses, of course, a lot of them did not want her to be the queen because, of course, she's a woman, and the fact that the moment that Viserys did have a king, that really changed everything. And let's be honest, like, we live in a part of Westeros where they're so outdated and they're so patriarchal. It's like they don't really consider a woman on the throne to be even legitimate in any sense, right? And here we are seeing a contrast of this, where after everything that Rhaenyra has been through, her father's death, the fact that Aegon has taken over the crown, the fact that she lost her child in birth, she still has managed to gain up all her strength just to come up to the council and prepare this war that she has with such grace and restraint. It's like, you gotta applaud the way that the writers and the filmmakers have really shown just the power, just the strength, the determination that they're showing of Rhaenyra, especially in this huge moment right here. And it's like, and the more you see it, the more you're just like, wow, this is like, the more they're showing why she should have, well, not should have, why she deserves to be the ruler of Westeros. because she's someone who isn't impulsive. She isn't someone who's, you know, thinking about violence first. She's trying to be strategic. She's trying to take the right steps. She's trying to make sure that she doesn't escalate to the point where people are in danger. She's doing all that she can to make sure that, you know, they try to minimize as much of this war as possible, because again, she knows what the prophecy is. She knows Aegon's conquest, not Aegon's conquest, Aegon's dream, the Song of Ice and Fire. You can see that from her, and this is where it's like, well, this is where you appreciate the fact that we have someone like Rhaenyra be the queen, right? She isn't using her emotions to, because here's the thing, a lot of men always say women are too emotional to be, you know, rulers, right? And here we are, we're seeing kind of the contrast of this. She's being the most reasonable person in the room. Literally, even Rhaenys is like, there's all these men who are quick thinking about this war. The only person in that room who isn't thinking straight up for war is Rhaenyra. She's the only one who's being reserved. She's the only one who's, you know, taking things slow. She's trying to think things, you know, right. And this is where we really see the huge contrast of this, and it's just amazing how they really characterize Rhaenyra in this episode. I think this is where we really start to see, yes, I mean, it's really weird saying that she's at her peak, because she is actually at her most vulnerable and most low point because of everything that's folded, but we're also seeing kind of a point in her where she is probably at her strongest, where she's finally got this high will, where she's strong-willed, where she's determined, and we're really seeing that coming off of this episode with Rhaenyra. And we gotta give props to Emma D'Arcy, because at least in the previous episodes, right, a lot of people have been criticizing about the whole, you know, cast change and how, you know, they haven't, you know, really embodied the characterization that Millie Alcott had put into the performance of Rhaenyra, of like the younger version. But I think this is where we really see how Emma does a brilliant job just kind of just understanding her world, realizing what she's been through, the amount of stress she's in, the amount of grief she's in, and yet Rhaenyra is the one that has to be, you know, the strongest willed person in the room. And Emma does such a great job embodying that attitude of Rhaenyra, and you have to give their props to really just showing that on screen. I think they have really done such a great job. I mean, if the previous episode hadn't solidified the performance before, where people were still kind of criticizing, this should be it. This is where we really, really see Emma's performance just really, truly shine. And I mean, by the time you get to the end, it's just like, wow, I feel for her, I sympathize with her. You want to support Rhaenyra's, you know, anguish that she's going to feel just moving forward, and we're about to talk more about that in a second. But again, I think, without a doubt, this episode was Emma as the MVP, without a doubt. Of course, it makes sense, because this is an episode called The Black Queen. Rhaenyra is going to be the face of this episode. This is her episode where we really see just kind of this huge, major transition for her, and they really, really do such a great job at just showcasing her, displaying her in this moment of just everything that's just blown, right? And again, this is just an incredible episode, just seeing that, right? Right, we're already seeing this contrast between Aegon and Rhaenyra, right? Aegon just has no, you know, he doesn't care for the throne, he doesn't have the experience for it, he's just more about his own, you know, self-pleasure than really just thinking about the realm. And I mean, I would assume that there may have been some preparation for what he's been doing, but even then, you can see that he just doesn't have the qualities of a king. Whereas when we contrast it with Rhaenyra, she clearly has all the qualities that a ruler should have. The reservation, the determination, the strong will, not, you know, being impulsive. We're seeing how Rhaenyra is much more suitable ruler of Westeros, really. And again, this is just a way of just really showing that. And let's also kind of go into some of the more supporting characters in a second. Let's also kind of just talk about more of the supporting characters. So yeah, Daemon finally talks in this episode. Like, this is probably where he's had the most dialogue in such a long time. And you gotta see. I mean, the contrast between Daemon and Rhaenyra, right? Daemon is just quick feet, trying to like go straight into the war. We're seeing a lot of that unfold in this episode, where it's like, I want to go straight into this war. He's very impulsive about it. He's very angry. We see that coming from this episode. He's already accusing the High Towers of the ones actually killing off King Viserys, that they're the ones who did it on purpose, and that they did it just so that they can, take this opportunity to take the throne, right? And we're seeing how Daemon is really, really getting, like, for him, he's the one who's getting very emotional about everything compared to Rhaenyra, like, hence the quote I just said about women being too emotional, right? But we're seeing how between them, Daemon is the one who's being very emotional, very angry, very, very impulsive, making some really, really violent decisions. We're seeing that coming from him. And I get that in a sense that he has to do that, because if you don't show that strength, if you don't show that violence, that the High Towers won't take them seriously. And we do kind of, and there is some, validity to that claim that, yeah, you have to, like, they even made this mention a couple of episodes ago, that they need to be feared so that people can, take them seriously. And that is true, but also it's like, okay, but you can't just go right in and be like, well, let's, kill off everybody in like a second, right? And that makes a lot more sense why Viserys picked Rhaenyra over Daemon. Again, you're seeing lots and lots of pieces where we're kind of seeing where the decisions unfold, and we're seeing the true colors of people, where because of who they are, that it makes a lot more sense why some people don't deserve the throne, whereas some people do. Again, we're seeing a lot of that unpack, and we're also kind of seeing how Daemon just doing, like, I mean, there was one very off-putting part where he literally had such, grabs Rhaenyra, which was totally not cool, and it's like, okay, you need to, like, chill, right? And I get it, again, he's really angry, and it's just like, okay, and I guess this is one of the things where it's like, okay, as much as people love Daemon, you also got to remember that he has a lot of flaws, that he's not the perfect person. We're seeing that from this episode, and I mean, at least even with that being the case, right, he still is supporting Rhaenyra regardless, right? I mean, let's just talk about the quick coronation that just happened, too. Like, that was just poetic in every sense. I mean, for one thing, for her to have her father's crown be given to her, for one thing, right? I mean, that you can't make that any better, right? But then on top of that, it's Daemon who is the one who basically sets the crown on her, which it's really insane, because that kind of parallels to the 8th episode, yes, the 8th episode, where he is the one who set the crown on Viserys, and now he's doing the same thing with Rhaenyra, and already instantly accepting her as the queen, even though not too long ago, or technically speaking in our world, not too long ago, but in their world, it was a long while ago, but he wanted the throne, right? He wanted to be the heir, and he was very, very upset about that. And here we see that he's just quick on his feet, just accepting Rhaenyra as the queen. I mean, and just to see everyone just support her and just lay their loyalty, I mean, that was just incredible, right? I mean, I literally had tears in my eyes just watching that scene, because you don't really see a lot of, queens become the queen of, like, a huge ass, like, realm. And I mean, that was such an emotional moment. Again, just knowing that she was in such high stress. She just lost her son, or just lost a child. We don't know if it was a son or daughter, but she lost her child, and yet she is the one who's really being reserved. She's being so restrained. And again, we're seeing all of that unfold in this episode. And again, the fact that she's the one who's being the smartest, trying to be very strategic out of everyone, is something that you kind of have to applaud her for. And again, Amanda honestly does a great job at that. Matt Smith does a great job of, showing just how upset Daemon is during this period. And like, a lot of people are upset. This is what we're seeing. Everyone's upset. Anyone who isn't supporting Aegon is upset. Everyone who's supporting Rhaenyra, we can see how they're all just like, okay, we need to think quick. I mean, and you can see how everything is unfolding, right? And again, you can see how the Blacks are a lot more, smart with just trying to play this game as at the moment, right? And that's because they have a lot more experienced people. They have more dragons, of course. They have a lot more, they have the Valyrians now backing them, which means that that's going to become a huge issue in terms of trade, as we've seen here. Like, this is kind of just seeing how war is unplayed, and having how, and it's like, I don't know what game it is, but it's just like watching how people in, like, games, right? Like these military games, just trying to figure out how they're going to try and outsmart their enemies. We're seeing that unfold here in this show, and just like, okay, it's not the politics anymore. This is now becoming a whole full-fledged war, and now everyone is now trying to think smart about what they're trying to do. So now let's get kind of to the more stressing stuff of what's going on. We've heard the Starks, we're hearing the Aarons. We don't know where their stances are, but I'm going to assume that they're probably going to side with Rhaenyra, especially because Aarons, I mean, her mother was literally an Aaron, so I'm going to assume that's going to be the case. Winterfell, I'm not sure where that's going to go up to, but I feel like they might be supporting Rhaenyra on that. But let's just talk about the Storm's End scene, and just, this is the scene that a lot of us had expected, right? I already knew kind of what was going to happen, in the sense of the fact that, yes, Luke is the one who's going to essentially be the first official fatality. I guess you can say the first official fatality was technically Rhaenyra's, unborn child, but this is the one that really, really is going to trigger everything, right? So so we see kind of how, okay, so we know that Baratheons are siding with, Aegon, the Hightowers, and the Greens, right? And we see Aemond, right? And just kind of how he's being the sinister person that he is, which makes him such an intriguing character, because he's very sinister, he's very scary, and he's not to be trusted, and he's not that likable, but also he's so, interesting as a character that it's just like you want to see more of him. And we did get to see him. He's the only other Hightower. Well, he's a Targaryen, but he's Hightower by blood. But he's the only other person aside from Otto that we see from the Greens show up in this episode. And oh my God, just kind of see he still has this whole grudge against Luke, and he's like, I want your eye, and I want to present it to my mom. It's like, holy shit, this guy is pissed as hell. And again, we see kind of this feud that happens on air between Vhagar and Arrax, and just again, as we expected, the fact that Luke is dead, Arrax is dead. They now are down a dragon, but more importantly, Rhaenyra has lost a son. And I'm going to talk more about this in a second, and why that's really important when we kind of go into this. But I think one of the things that I'm really intrigued about is that the fact that they didn't show it as if Aemon had purposely had done this, right? I think in the books, it was kind of implied, or at least they had thought that this was something that he purposely had done. But from what we see here, it appears that there was, again, lots of more misunderstandings, but it appears that, from Rhaegar's perspective, he was being very rash about what he had done, and that the fact that was that Aemon didn't order that. That's what we're seeing from here. We can even see Aemon's shock that oh my God. You can see from his eyes oh my God, what have I done? He knows in that moment that, oh my God, I just effed up real bad, because now this is going to be changing up the tides right here. This is Rhaenyra that we just saw moments ago, who was okay, I want to take this slow. I want to see who are my enemies, who are my allies. I want to try and minimize this war as much as possible, taking the most strategic, the most shrewd way possible. And here now that she's seen that her second son is now dead, the very, very angry mom, right? Now that she knows what happened, right? And the fact that it's Daemon broke it to her, that was heartbreaking. And now you can tell that she's going to be an angry, angry mother. She's going to be on a full-fledged vengeance at this point, which it's okay, you understand that. That's my assumption from it. You can, because we don't know. This is how it ended, right? She is upset. She is angry. She's heartbroken. And I'm going to assume that that's going to probably show her as a much different person that we're going to see later on in whenever season 2 comes out. But, oh my God, just again, a lot of the misunderstanding, the misjudgments of everything that's going on. We're seeing already all this kind of unfold in this episode right here. Wow. And the fact is that, again, you have to kind of just look into just Rhaenyra's perspective, right? Rhaenyra just lost her father. Rhaenyra has lost, her claim to the throne that was supposed to be her birthright. Then she literally lost her own unborn child through miscarriage, right? And she went through all that stress for it. And now she's lost her other son. She is angry. She is pissed. We're seeing kind of how that is leading up to what would be eventually the start of the beginnings of the Dance of the Dragon War. And the way that they really just show that, right? And it's really insane because not too long ago we saw that Alicent, right? Like I'm gonna do this comparison, right? So Alicent, right? Not too long ago, the reason why she has been trying to put Aegon on the Iron Throne, I mean, initially it was just because of duty, right? The fact that Rhaenyra isn't upholding her, her honor as the, future ruler. She hasn't been able to, carry, an heir that is, legitimately, and most importantly, the fact that she lied to her, that was like the big thing that really happened, kind of just set the whole stages for it. We're kind of seeing kind of this contrast, right? But even more importantly, we understand that the reason why Alicent didn't want Rhaenyra on the throne is because she didn't want Rhaenyra to kill off her kids, right? She wanted to protect her kids and make sure that none of them die. Well, now we're seeing kind of how, well, because of her reasons, right? Rhaenyra's the one dealing with the consequences of all of that. She's now the one seeing that her kids are dead. The fact that everything's being taken away from her. Like, she's the one being punished, and now we're seeing kind of how Alicent's worst nightmares is happening to Rhaenyra. And now it's like, okay, well, Alicent, you were, all this, right? You were trying to be a protective mom, and again, we kind of see a bit of this hypocrisy where it's like, okay, yes, you are the protective mother who's trying to take care of her own, but here you are kind of just inducing the same sort of consequence that you were afraid of onto Rhaenyra. And now, here's the thing, now we understand why Rhaenyra wants to, kill off your family. So, again, I don't know, this is kind of going a bit too much into, speculation of it, but it's like you're starting to really understand Rhaenyra's point of view now, kind of just understanding that, okay, she is really upset. Again, just the way that Emma D'Arcy just really just shows the anger, just not just the anger, but the heartbreak, the anger, just everything, the fury coming out of her. They do such a great job at it. I mean, again, you really feel for Rhaenyra in this episode, and we're just seeing a lot of this contrast. So, like, these are two mothers who are trying to protect their children. Rhaenyra, for the longest time, has been trying to, maintain this peace as much as possible, just to protect her kids, and also in a sense not to just, forge any war against, Alicent and her kids. And here we are now, kind of seeing where, well, war has been declared, the High Towers have started it, and now Rhaenyra's like, okay, well, now we're about to get into the Game of Thrones in a sense. So, yeah, I mean, this is just an incredible episode again. It really set the stage for what's going to happen moving forward. Rhaenyra was, again, the MVP of this episode just because of just to see how much she just changes and transforms throughout this whole episode. I mean, just incredible. I mean, this is... And I know a lot of people might actually kind of criticize Morgan about the pace situation, but I think that it works in this case because of everything that's unfolding. Everything's happening quick. That's the thing. Everything's happening so quick that, in a more technical perspective, it's important to show kind of this quickness that's happening because the war itself happened pretty quickly. Suddenly, it's just sudden. I mean, that's the whole point of this war, right? And you kind of have to understand that, okay, in a more technical perspective, this is why everything went so quickly because, well, everything that unfolded happened so quickly. And you just gotta applaud the filmmakers, the showrunners for really doing such a great job at just giving the storytelling, right? I mean, since the moment that this show had began, like 2 months ago, we really start to kind of understand who these characters are. Some of the people who we sympathize, some of the people that we don't sympathize, understanding their reasons, their assumptions, basically their motives for everything, right? Like, even with Alicent, right? As much as I don't like her as a character, or she's one of my least favorite characters, I understand her perspective and understand why she's doing the way she's doing things. And it's like, okay, I, in a sense, sympathize with some of the things that she is doing. And again, and not just that, but they really just elevated some of these characters, right? King Viserys became such an emotional and just a heartbreaking character that we didn't expect to become, just to kind of unfold in the show. We're really seeing this Rhaenyra that's like, initially started off as this like really, teenage rebelling, like rebel who just, looks forward to the crown, and now and then once she gets to kind of this older age, she's a bit more mature. She's just trying to, trying to think clever, trying to be smart about things, not to be impulsive, rash, or reckless, or with anything. And now it's just like, okay, now we're seeing a huge change with Rhaenyra, where it's like, okay, things are about to change. And I love how they just left it as such a huge cliffhanger, just like not giving us an idea of where things are gonna go. But I think that's gonna keep everyone speculating where things are going to move forward from here. I don't know how Alicent is feeling. I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna assume that Alicent's gonna be pretty pissed about everything that happened, because the last thing she wanted was to escalate things as well. She didn't want Rhaenyra to be dead, right? She just wants to Rhaenyra to kind of just accept that, okay, Aegon's the king, let's just not take this too far, and all that sort of stuff. And things didn't work out. I mean, again, we already know what happens because Game of Thrones itself has already happened, but again, you gotta applaud the way that House of Dragon really just puts in the gaps and fills in just everything of like the history of Targaryens, and we're really seeing that unfold in this show. And based on that ending, right, it's pretty clear that this won't be an anthology series. This is going to be a story about the Dance of the Dragons. This is what it's going to be about, at least for another season, hopefully. But again, this is not going to be an anthology, at least from what I'm seeing. It's going to continue off telling us a story about the Dance of the Dragons, how there's this Targaryen civil war. Things are about to unfold pretty quickly, and it's not going to be pretty at all, at least for anyone who is aware of the book situation. But again, anything can change. They can change a lot of things, and they've already done that already. And again, you've got to applaud the showrunners for doing such a great job, just really elevating all the characters, the story, just the lore itself. And yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be in such a huge withdrawal knowing that House of Dragon is now done, but I cannot wait for whenever season 2 comes out. I believe I've heard that season 2 won't come out for like 2 years, so that's going to be such an awful wait, but I hope it's worth it. But yeah, again, this is House of the Dragon at its peak. It's really set a huge bar that in some sense Game of Thrones couldn't do. Again, I think one of the things that this show has done that Game of Thrones has not is just essentially the performances and the elevation of these characters and just the complexity of them that even Game of Thrones couldn't really show truly in a whole full sense, or at least just because of the whole 8th season that kind of ruined it. But and again, it's too soon to say whether or not House of Dragon is the best show, because it just started, right? It's really hard to really say, but it's definitely one of my favorite shows going forward, and I cannot wait to see what happens in season 2. Where I mean, I could imagine things are about to really blow up. There's going to be a lot more explosion, bombshells, and everything. This season, we really just saw kind of how things were just unfolding, just really setting the stage for everything. What's set in motion, the catalyst, the trigger points, the turning points, everything that led to this moment, right? And now I feel like season 2 is just really going to show the full fledged of this war in a similar sense that Game of Thrones had done kind of a similar, sequence of events in season 1, where and again, this is a show that really, at least in the first season, had a lot of time jumps, which again, a lot of people kind of, put off from, but I think that it makes sense because they really just want to get straight into the big story, which is Dance of the Dragon. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. I mean, again, I'm going to miss this show for like however long it's going to take for season 2 to be filmed. Everyone did just did such a spectacular job with this show. Olivia Cook, Emma Darcy, Matt Smith, Patty Constantine, even Rise and Fawn. I mean, they've all done such a great job just giving us these characters, and I just look forward to seeing more of them moving forward. But yeah, let me know what you think. Did you enjoy this episode as much as I have? Do you agree that Rhaenyra was the MVP? Did you have your reservations about Emma Darcy as Rhaenyra, and did this episode finally kind of change that mindset for you that yes, It makes so much more sense why they were the perfect casting for Rhaenyra. What do you think is going to happen moving forward? What do you think is going to happen with Rhaenyra moving? Like, what does this mean for Rhaenyra as a character, considering like the things that we saw with her before, and now we just have this happening? What does this mean for the Hightowers? Because I mean, we didn't see Alicent, we didn't see Aegon. We don't know how they're reacting to everything that's happened. And what do you think is going to happen moving forward? What do you hope will happen in season 2, and just kind of the future of the show in general? And what are your thoughts and concerns just moving forward after this episode? Let me know in the comments down below, and make sure to like and subscribe.